to Thrashcast episode 38. This week we have Megadeth in the house, and Jimmy's got it there, and we're going to be talking about the classic thrash album, Peace Sells, but Who's Buying? But let's usher in my partners in crime tonight, so I want to welcome in both Jim and Billy. And guys, how's it going?
All good.
Fantastic.
I'm glad Jim showed the album. I pulled out all the albums just before we started from my top 10, and I actually forgot to pull the damn album we're talking about. So there you go.
Yes, of course, that famous, Ed Repka cover. And tonight we are talking about Peace Sells, but we'll also be doing our top 10 segment, and it's going to be our top 10 Ed Repka album covers. Now, I pulled all my covers earlier, so I got my visual aids for tonight.
Oh, you got them? Good.
Yeah, I got all mine, so I pulled them all out, but that'll be a fun talk. So before we start, let's just give you some info on where you can find our podcast. You can find us at Horror Metal Sounds at www.horrormetalsounds.com. You can also go right directly to our YouTube channel, and you can catch us there at Horror Metal Sounds Thrashcast. Just look it up, you'll find us, no problems. You can also find us on Rumble, and you can also find us on Spotify. So I know we do get, every so often we get this surge of people asking about Spotify. So we've been doing a good job of trying to update Spotify weekly with the Thrashcast, so that way people can listen to it on their own. We also, one little small request before we begin, please like and subscribe. So if you go to our YouTube channel, it is up there. Like, subscribe, we do appreciate it. Every little bit helps the algorithm, so it pushes our videos out to people, so that's kind of important to us. And leave us a comment. We like that quite a bit. We enjoy hearing and talking and debating, and we do have a few devoted fans who come every week to the podcast. So the more they come, the better and the merrier, right?
That's right.
At it, actually.
Shout out to Metalheaded. Shout out to Metalheaded.
Exactly. Shout out to the Metalheaded one, because he's always watching weekly, and he doesn't comment on every video, every podcast, but he does a good job of, I'd say, 80% of the time he does comment. So, and I always respond back. So whenever he leaves a comment, I always write back to him right away.
Wicked.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. All right, so let's start out with our our news items this week and our spinning items. And Jimmy, why don't you lead us off?
Yeah, I'll go. I don't really have any news items, but I picked up a couple of new things this week. I picked up the Body Count, which I know,
nice, yes.
Ken, you were talking about last week, Merciless. Yep. This is a wicked album. And I mean, I know a lot of people, Ice-T, and they're like, it's rap. But I got to admit, out of all his albums, this is probably the heaviest one that he's put out in a while. And so many good guests on here. You got Corpse Grinder, you've got Max, you've got so many different, and you've got what's his name, Joe Bad from Fit for an Autopsy. Love that band, and his voice sounds so good with Ice. He really helps that song out. And but I like the song on it is The Purge, man. And it's so cool because it starts off with the actual, like, the purge is starting, and that it gives me shivers every time that alarm goes off and that woman's computerized voice is telling you, weapons of class 4 and under are allowed. There will be no hospitals, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, man, I'm scared of the purge. I'm scared of the purge happening. This song freaks me out, and I love it. I've listened to it all weekend. Anyway, the next one I picked up, Billy, my copy of Aborted showed up.
Great.
We talked about that, and no, that's wicked. And this is a great album as well, too. And I love the artwork. Ken, you love the artwork on this bad boy.
I love the artwork.
Yeah.
What I like about that artwork, though, Jimmy, is that if you look at it closely, they throw in a lot of 80s horror film references, little gems,
right?
VHS copies of movies, like classic 80s movies. That's why I love that cover. So there's all these little hidden gems, very much like the Iron Maiden Somewhere in Time cover, where Derek rakes through a lot of little bit of little nuggets in the background. Cool. This album cover has it as well.
I'll have to check that out and look at it a bit closer. But no, both two good albums. And I mean, I think Body Count probably wouldn't make my top 15. We'll be talking about that, I think, next week. But it's a great album. Definitely be in my top 30, I think. But it's just, and I know a lot of people, hey, it's got that sort of mix of a bit of rap in it, but I find this one's definitely a lot more metal, and I really, really like that. I think Ice-T's he's got that distinctive voice, but when he teams up with like a death metal singer, oh man, you get kind of the regular, maybe slower, I don't know how to say it, definitely cleaner, more harsh vocals with him, but then you've got the death metal vocals really, really break the song up and really, really accentuate the album better. I really like it. This is my favorite one out of their albums for quite a long time.
Juan Garcia on guitar from Evil
Yeah.
Dead with
And Ernie C. I mean, Ernie C.
Yeah.
played for Black Sabbath, like produced the Black Sabbath album. So like, and has played with everybody. And and there's the cover on it there for Comfortably Numb. Not really my favorite, but after seeing interviews with Ernie C. on it and the fact that, David Gilmour allowed them to do it with him playing on it, he wants to play it. I think that's really cool. I mean, you gotta give them props, man. That's legendary. That's legendary status.
Yeah.
Cool. And I guess for fans of Body Count, they're actually performing, which is pretty wild, on Jimmy Fallon.
Yes.
Yeah,
this will come out Friday, but they're performing Wednesday night, so people can go back and look at the clip.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I'll definitely be doing that. Cool.
Yeah. That's what I got, guys.
Okay, perfect. And Billy, how about you?
Nothing. You're all done, Jim?
Yeah, I'll finish.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Just a couple items on the news front, because this has been in my head. Like I've seen Overkill just recently opening for King Diamond, and unfortunately, Dee Dee Vernies hasn't been there. And I posted some clips on my Instagram channel, and everyone was like, "Where's Dee Dee?" And so I think a lot of people know, or some people know, like he's had shoulder surgery. So I didn't realize how bad a shape it's been. So he tore his right rotator cuff twice now, and it's had to be like surgically repaired. He tore the left one. And so he's just really struggling. Like he could do a show, he could do 2 shows, but it's like when it's night after night after night, like it's really tough on him. So they've been using like an old creator bassist. Even Dave Ellison filled in at one point doing a show. The Fear Factory bassist has joined in, and so just seeing them, it's so odd not seeing Dee Dee because he's such a big part of the show, right? He does so much of the backing vocals that he's up there in the front with like Bobby like all the time.
He's a founding member too.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, exactly. So I just hope he's going to be able to recover and be back full time again. Because honestly, Overkill is not quite Overkill without him.
No, they need him.
I agree.
Yeah. I mean, he can still write the songs, right? He plays a part in songwriting, but you want to see him up there on stage.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Another quick item. So I'm sure this guy will come up at some point to some degree. Marty Freeman, his new book is out, his autobiography. It came out. So anyone who's into him, check that out. Actually, I don't even remember that. Something Japanese is the title of his autobiography.
Wasn't
but
it's on something like Turning Japanese or something.
Yeah, Turning Japanese, maybe. Yeah, or something.
Or
that's a song, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, but something like that. But it's on Amazon, so if you're a fan, you might want to check that out. And then just really quick, me being a festival guy, I find this stuff interesting. I always like to see the U.S. succeed for festivals because it's such a big European thing that we need more of it here. But the Las Vegas festival, Sick New World, that we heard recently that they canceled the festival. And so, they had 2 pretty big headliners, Metallica and a band that's not my favorite, Linkin Park. But like from what I read, they gave them each like $5 million. So, and again, crazy that Linkin Park would get the same money as Metallica. But anyway, that's But yeah, it sounds like ticket sales weren't enough to cover those fees. So this would have been the third one. So this isn't their
Yeah.
first time doing this. And they had a lot of good bands. I didn't realize, like, they had Testament, like Jimmy, you like Acid Bath.
Love
They
Acid
were
Bath.
performing here. Ministry, Gojira, Cannibal
cool.
Corpse,
That's a great lineup.
Exodus, Mayhem, Arch Enemy. Like, it was a massive metal fest. So yeah, too bad, but yeah, that's what happens, unfortunately, if there's not
And
enough.
Billy, it's Dreaming Japanese.
Oh, is it Dreaming?
Dreaming
Dreaming, yeah.
Japanese. Okay,
Turning
yeah.
Japanese, I think is a lyrics.
That's
in
a song by the Vapors.
Song. Turning
Punk
Japanese.
band.
Yeah, exactly.
Devo, wasn't that a Devo song?
No, the Vapors.
Who is it?
Vapors. Okay, yeah. I thought it
Oh,
was-
okay. It's so catchy. I know that song. in
Yeah,
my head. So what was I spinning just before we were joined together for the podcast? One of my albums I love. So Manila Road, Crystal Logic,
Yeah.
going way back to 1983. So this actually, I mean, they have like 17 or 18 albums.
Yeah.
This is my favorite of them all. So if this is kind of like quirky heavy metal. The band has gone through different eras. The earliest ones are more prog. They got much heavier and thrashier. But sadly, the singer, guitarist, and pretty much songwriter of almost everything passed away in what was that, in 2018. It was actually in Germany. He had just done the Headbangers Open Air Festival, and then he had a heart attack after the festival, and unfortunately died in the German hospital. And he was set to play Wacken like a few days later, and we were all there, and showing. They obviously couldn't change the set list. The set times at Wacken to so people were looking for the band, but we had heard that he had died, unfortunately,
Too bad.
days
That
earlier.
sucks.
So, but yeah. But really good band, right? I think a band that deserves a lot more attention. They did get a lot more attention probably later in life, their last couple albums. But if you don't know these guys and you're a metal fan, and he's
I
got
know
a
them.
distinct voice, right?
Yeah.
Mark Shelton's not like the typical singer, but it's really good stuff. So highly recommend it.
Cool.
That's it for me.
All right, perfect. Okay, so the big news, I guess, somewhat news, the big chatter about the upcoming Meshuggah, Cannibal Corpse, and Carcass tour, which is announced.
Carcass.
Yeah, Carcass.
Yeah.
2025, it kicks off in March 28th in Quebec, which is cool. So they're actually starting the Canadian dates first, which I find kind of interesting. And then they go to Quebec. They come here to Toronto on the 29th, and I think they do. I think Detroit's on the 30th, as far as I know. And then the rest of it's all American dates. And they end in April 24th in New York City. So it'll be interesting. I know some people like the lineup, some people don't like Meshuggah. So I get that. It's kind of an odd pairing of like two death metal legends. And then you get Meshuggah, which I don't know. They're not necessarily death. I don't even know what you call them, to be honest. Like death, thrash, noise. I don't even know. How do you define
modern
them?
metal
Deathcore?
with some prog in
Deathcore,
there?
yeah. How would you define those? I don't even know how to define them.
Are they headlining?
Yes.
Yeah.
Are they that big?
I would assume they are.
I'm not that keen on them, but I would like, is there a Halifax date in there?
No, unfortunately,
What do you think, Jim?
2 dates. It's so weird. It's not even like a date in BC. It's strictly Quebec, Toronto, and then they move off to the States.
Yeah.
And Toronto is unfortunately in that venue that's incredibly inconvenient.
Yeah, the one you mentioned before, Billy.
Where King Diamond played, yeah.
Is that like far? Because I don't even know where the hell that is.
So that's out of the city.
Huh?
That's like kind of out of the core.
Yeah, it's kind of like Mississauga, I guess far out.
Okay.
I actually went there by public transit, like the subway and the bus. It took me a walk. It took me almost 90 minutes to get there.
Ooh.
Oh wow.
And it's in a giant casino hotel, right? So I just stayed in the hotel that night and
you stayed overnight, right?
Day, right?
Okay.
But the venue's awesome, right? It's really cool.
I'd like to go to the show, but I'm not a Meshuggah fan either. But
yeah, me neither. Yeah.
Oh, you got to see Carcass though.
Yeah, I'd like to see Carcass. Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure, and
I'd love to.
Cannibal Corpse.
I'd love to see Cannibal Corpse.
But Meshuggah's, it's I like a couple of their albums, but I wouldn't call myself a huge fan. But
Yeah, I find all the bands of that style are all like coming back, right? Like
yeah,
the whole European festival tour this year are all bands
Yes.
like that. Like it's crazy. I don't know. There must be demand for it.
I would assume so. Yeah, have to be.
Yeah.
And so what I'm spinning though tonight, this is Billy's recommendation for the band Laceration,
Ooh, yes.
Death Thrash. Now we were talking about, I think Jim, you mentioned we were talking previously about the cover. So I looked it up. So the cover's done by James Bosma. He's a relatively new artist. You can find him actually on his Instagram page. His work is amazing. He does a lot. He's really into kind of like sci-fi horror and stuff like that. So he's did a few book covers. He's did album covers, but the covers that he's done are all like maybe up and coming bands. So he did this one for a band called Insatiable Thirst. That cover, look that up. Like go to his Instagram page, check out the guy's work. That cover, I saw that and I was like, holy cow, what a cover! He's a really talented artist. But putting the art aside, the album is fantastic. It's Death Thrash. It's strong. It's short. It's not like a long album. I do agree, Billy, that I think Billy, you were saying you found it a little bit on the standard side, but still fairly entertaining.
Yeah, yeah. Like they're not reinventing the wheel by any
Right.
means. But
Is it that one? Oh shit. Sorry.
Let's again.
Insatiable Thirst album
Yes.
cover.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
That's the one. Oh
Yeah.
Woo!
That's cool.
That's a wild cover. I saw that and I was like, wow. But I like the cover here for Laceration too. I think that's a really good cover. But
I ordered it. It'll be here Saturday.
you ordered it? Nice.
Yeah, I can't wait, man.
although we're saying it's
fantastic.
standardized, I still think like it's a great album. Like
Oh yeah.
it's rated.
Yeah, no, I wasn't saying that you didn't think it was.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, when you mentioned that, I gave it a spin and I liked it too.
Yeah.
I don't know if it would make my top 15, but I do like it. I do.
Now I
do
cut mine
it.
off no more because I was changing it too much.
Yeah, you got to just kind of go with it.
Yeah. But I mean, it's a
it.
wicked album. It's a strong album. If that would have came out like before June, it probably like, and I listened to it that much. I mean, I've listened to it probably 20 times since Billy brought it up, and I definitely it's worth buying, and I want to have it in my collection.
Yeah, it's great. I'm the same. I've heard it a bunch of times, and I dig it too. So
cool.
All right, so that's pretty much going to end our news segment for the evening. So before we get into talking about Megadeth, and they don't really need any introduction, but we'll bring up some questions that I thought I'd ask you guys. The first question I wanted to talk about was, now this being Peace being their sophomore album, how do you guys compare it to, say, Ride the Lightning, Spreading the Disease, and Hell Awaits, even if you wanted to compare or rank it? So we'll start with you, Billy. What do you think?
Yeah, I guess like I always find Megadeth difficult in these comparisons, right? Musically, I always loved Megadeth. Dave's this is a personal tasting. Dave's not one of my favorite singers, right? Like some eras I like him better than others. So they tend not to do as well in these kind of ranking things. Like for me, Slayer is clearly the number one. And then you guys know Anthrax is not my favorite.
Yeah,
Glad to be at the other end.
Yeah.
And then like Ride the Lightning, like musically, I think Rust in Peace is as good as anything on Ride the Lightning personally. But I prefer James' vocals, so like I'm gonna pick Ride the Lightning, maybe slightly more than Rust in Peace. But like I said, if it was just on the music, I would probably take Rust in Peace over Ride the Lightning. So that's kind of where I sit. Like Peace Sells would be my second favorite album, right? Rust in Peace is my
first. Yeah.
Which we did a podcast on.
That's right.
Please check it out.
Yes. Go back and I can't even remember what the episode.
I don't know what a couple must have been in the 20s episodes.
Something like that. Yeah, something like that. Okay, Jimmy. So I know you're a huge Megadeth fan. So where do you rank everything?
This is my man. I go with Rust in Peace as my favorite, but in amongst the sophomore albums of the big four, I mean, Ride the Lightning, I love it. It's a flawless album, but I'm a huge Kill 'Em All fan. So for me, that would be third on my list, with Master being probably second. I know a lot of people be like, "What?" But I love Kill 'Em All. I love the rawness. With Slayer, Hell Awaits was probably my first album I got into. Maybe I got into Haunting the Chapel before that, the EP there. And the difference between Megadeth's first album, Killing Is My Business, and this monumental album is the same as probably Show No Mercy and Hell Awaits. Like, it's just the production, the songwriting, everything is that much stronger. The Slayer ones, Show No Mercy is better than Killing Is My Business, so maybe not a fair comparison. Out of all the four, I would say this and probably the Anthrax Fistful. I'd probably say the Megadeth Killing Is My Business for a debut is probably not like my worst favorite that I don't like, and my worst favorite. The worst one that I'm not keen on. I like Fistful of Metal, and then to Spreading the Disease, again, a really, really great album, but I think their third album was probably the one that really lit it on fire. These guys got it in two. So for me, I mean, I love this album. This album, oh man, listening to it, I listen to it probably a few times a year. I have songs on a playlist, some of my favorite songs, but it brings me back to 1986 when I was in grade 10. I still have my OG original cassette. Nice. And I mean, I remember all my friends I had a job working in a pet store back then. So I was buying all kinds of cassettes, and all my poor friends were like, let me tape it. It's just such a good album. And I love it. I think it's great. And but I mean, Rust in Peace, like Billy said, is my favorite Megadeth album of all time. It's one of my favorite thrash albums of all time. I put it up there with Kill 'Em All. I put it up there with anything from Metallica, really. So yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah, for me, it's funny because it's like I would always say Metallica first, but when I heard not Rust in Peace, but Peace Sells.
Yeah.
That was it. I listened to that thing nonstop, and I bought it as soon as it came out, and I never stopped listening to it. So it kind of, I don't know, out of the four albums, it's weird. It's Metallica. I like them both. Like, I equally like them both, but maybe for me, I think Peace will just slightly be ahead of Ride. And then I always Slayer's last for me, because I didn't get into Slayer right away. When I got into thrash, it was Metallica, then that led to Megadeth, and then that led to Anthrax, and then it led to Slayer. That's how it always was for me. It's just how I like Spreading a lot. It's a great album, but you just mentioned it, Jimmy. The third album, Among the Living, is where it came together for a lot of people.
But you know what, too, included. Ken?
Yeah.
Everybody loves an underdog story, and even though it wasn't as predominant, I think a lot of people were in Dave's corner. Like, at that point when this came out, I mean, there wasn't a lot of focus put on sort of that riff. Like, I lived in Nova Scotia and Halifax, Canada.
Yeah.
So like, I didn't know, other than what I was reading in the magazines, what was going on. So I didn't know of the rift until probably like maybe the Black Album or even Master. And then with them, it would have been Countdown and Rust in Peace. So, it wasn't as predominant, newsworthy as it was, but I think everybody goes for an underdog. I think probably in the circles of where thrash was, the genesis of thrash out of California for the big four, there's probably a lot of support for Dave getting this going. And the first album was done on a shoestring, and you can tell, but then this came out and just, it blew everything away.
Yep, that's very true. All right, we're going to stick with you, Jimmy, on question number 2. So I know we were talking before the podcast started about Chris and Gar and how they were big drug addicts and got fired. And then we know they were fuck-ups. We get that. Like, you didn't show up to practice. They were hours late. Dave was waiting for them to show up. Okay, we get that.
Musically, they weren't screw-ups.
No.
Right, but that's where I'm going with this question. They weren't screw-ups as musicians. So putting it just as a kind of a what if scenario, what do you think how they would have sounded if they stayed and Dave didn't fire them? How do you think the second album would have went? Do you have any
I
ideas,
I
Jimmy?
don't know. I think I don't know if Gar would have made it. Like,
True.
you know, like there's the second album. I mean, there's a song on there that's even kind of dedicated towards Gar, of like the fact that he's rips him apart for just being a shitty human being. But
Hmm.
I like Chris's guitar playing, but
Yeah, me
I
too.
also like Marty's guitar. Like I think they all were drug addicts back then. I think it was just they were taking it to the 11th level. You had Dave and you had the Dave and Allison were both partying as well, but I think them two took it to a whole new, probably even Gar taking it even farther than everywhere else, and Chris to some degree. But I think Chris is a talented guitar player.
Yeah.
If they, I look at it from two ways of thinking. I think this album has a sense of innocence with it. They were given cash to like advance on it. They spent it all on drugs
And
and
drugs, yeah.
booze and cigarettes and whatever. And that's maybe added to how good the album is. I mean, I don't want people to fail. I want people to do well. But for me, as being a 16-year-old, 15-year-old buying this cassette back in the day, that was raw. It was good. It was much better than the first one. Really good songwriting, and the musicianship is just amazing. I mean, I put that up against anything Metallica's ever done. And then for the third album, I think they kind of went a little bit. A lot of people like that album. I like it too, but it's a little bit more maybe unpolished and a little bit more, really real angry Dave is coming through at that point.
And different guitar
So I
players.
don't know if it would have. I think the way it happened is the way it happened, and I'm kind of glad, because then the next album after that was a masterpiece. So I don't think they would have been able to keep it going that long. I think somebody would have, with that amount of money coming in, with lack of control, I think probably kicking them out of the band and them having to live off of what royalties they had or whatever, and a lot less cash probably. I mean, Chris is obviously still going, and but Gar died. When did he die? 2018 was it, or 20?
Yeah, it was a while.
Yeah, I mean, the massive drug addiction through these years. So I think it probably would have been a quick burnout of probably the whole band if they stayed together, because I think maybe the two of them, I don't know, they were all pretty equal parts into it. They were heavier, but just kind of keeping it going. I don't think anybody could live that long doing that, so to speak, except for maybe Keith Richards.
Very true. Very true. And Billy, how about you?
Yeah, no, I mean, so yeah, it's interesting, right? Because Dave kind of got the boot out of Metallica,
Yeah.
so it's not. I'm sure I mean, I know he was doing drugs himself, not to the same extent. So I'm sure he gave some thought to it, right? We all know, like he didn't take like getting kicked out of Metallica hurt him like pretty badly. I think it's safe to say. So I assume like he did what was best for the band, right? Like Gar and Chris were not in good shape, so you got to keep the wheels on the car somehow, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, like and they're both great. Like I really like Chris's guitar playing. I think he's a good technical guitar player. I like Gar. I mean, his drumming has a real like jazz fusion feel to it.
Yes.
Like he clearly like the same music I love, 70s like jazz, like shredding, like jazz fusion. But like I guess for me, like as much as I like Rust, not Rust, sorry, this album,
Peace Cells.
It's almost like in order to get Rust in Peace, somebody had to go to get Marty on board, right? And I don't know, like I don't want to turn it into a Marty versus Chris kind of a thing, because they're both very good, and it'll be down to
different. They're just different
personal preference. But like I do think what Marty excels at is something that I don't know. I mean, maybe Chris doesn't do as well. Like the feel and the touch, it was a little bit better. Where you could probably say some of the crunch and the grind may have been better with Chris. I mean, so like they each have their own kind of. Marty could crunch too, I guess. But again, it comes down to personal preference. But for me to get Rust in Peace, there had to be a change in guitar player to get Marty on board. So that's the way I got it.
And for Rust in Peace too. I mean, Nick Menza, he shines on that album. I mean,
he's a good drummer.
It's like, I agree. That's the thing I was trying to say is I think this was sort of a growing thing, and it had to go through that in order to get to where that album came out. And I think this, I love it when band members stay and they have the same members through and nothing ever bad happens, and they just keep going. But it never happens. I mean, you just can't. There's too many outside forces. So I think, Bill, you made a great point there, which I totally overlooked, and that is Dave got kicked out for his drug and alcohol abuse out of Metallica. So I'm sure even though he was still dabbling, he's probably keeping one eye on the prize as well. Like, okay, boys, this is getting a little too crazy,
True. Well, I've always kind of thought that Chris, what I like about Chris is the intent. I feel for me like there's a more immediacy with the guitar playing on this album.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in terms of like, not that we want to compare the two, but obviously Marty's far superior guitar player. There's no question about that. Like that's, it's even silly to bring that up. But what I like about Chris and what I like about this album is that the tone. I like the tone and the nastiness, and he seems to play well, and he plays off Dave really well as the other guitarist. For me, anyways. I mean, sure, he's a fuck up for a while, but the guy turned it around. I mean, I mean, I understand that you steal the band equipment for fucking drugs, you're gonna get fired. I get it. We all get that. But I just always kind of wondered what would happen if he stayed and they did a second album. Just imagine, so what, with Chris on guitar and not Young and not Jeff. Just imagine. I think it could have even sounded better.
It would have been better. It would have been a more punchier album.
But I guess that's what I'm getting at. What the question is, what would it have been for me? I mean, I have nothing wrong with Jeff Young. Jeff Young is, I'm glad that he's sort of playing and he's getting some nods to hanging out with Ellison and all that stuff. And they're making music now as kind of like a Megadeth kind of side project kind of thing. That's great. But I just always liked Chris as a guitar player. I like his solo album. I like his production. I like Ohm. I like his jazz fusion band Ohm a lot. So I just like what he's contributed to the metal world. And you mentioned it, Jimmy. The System Has Failed. He played on that album.
Yeah,
too.
He did
play on that album to help out Dave when he needed help.
Yeah.
So, but I guess it's a question we'll never really know, unfortunately. But I think the consensus here to me is that, well, you got Nick Menza, who basically came on afterwards, and then you have, of course, Marty. So I guess it's a kind of a moot point in some ways.
But there's a lot of critics out there. This brings up another good point. There's a lot of critics out there, and there's a lot of people who like So Far So Good So What, but there's a lot of people that think they went a little bit backwards in time from this album.
Okay.
And then obviously the next album, which was just a monumental album. There's a lot of people that think, a lot of fans out there. I like So Far So Good for What, but I like the fact that it's again another darker album. It's an angry album from Dave's point of view, and I think I don't know. But it is lacking sort of the star feel that this album has, and then the next album. It's just kind of weird. Plus, too, they're putting the shitty cover on there of Anarchy. I hate that. But anyways, I think a lot of fans think they might have went a little bit backwards during that album. Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
I actually like So Far So Good.
Yeah.
So right? Like I'm not like crapping on it in any way. No. But yeah, I do think it's a letdown and a step down and then a huge step back up after it.
Absolutely. Well, but you know what though? Yeah. Poor Jeff. He has to come in and fucking pick up where Chris left off. So that's a tall order for one dude. And I've heard Dave chirp forever about this, that, oh, he didn't really fit the style. He didn't have the look. I'm like, dude, then why did you fucking hire him in the first place if that's the case? So David, there's a lot of hyperbole with Dave sometimes when he was talking in the past. Because I don't think Jeff is actually a bad guitar player, but I think he got the short end of the stick for me personally. And it wasn't until Marty when then everything came together and Marty became the guy, the lead guitarist for the band for, a number of albums to follow. But oh well, it is what it is. So
well, it makes
yeah.
It's kind of like with Motorhead when they brought in Brian Robertson for Perfect Day, another Perfect Day. Like here's the Thin Lizzy guitarist coming in and not even dressing like the Motorhead crew. And he comes in for that album, which I love that album. And he's a talented guitarist.
Yeah, he's great.
He didn't kind of fit it either,
It happens, right?
A lot of pressure too, heading into that situation.
Image is everything, though, Jimmy. You have to understand that, right? Like back then, these thrash bands, image was everything. You had to look the part, you had to be the part.
Yeah.
And if you didn't, fuck, you're out the door. Exactly. I mean, that's obvious what I used to read with a lot of these earlier thrash bands.
Oh, yeah.
But, what can you do? All right, so we'll move on to question 4. It's more my question because I kind of, but I'm sure you guys have your opinions. I mean, Ed Repka is the cover artist, of course, and he's gone on and say that this album or this cover album is a milestone for him in his artistic career, which is cool because I think it's the album that put him on the map as an artist. I mean, he was doing work for a long time, but this album gave him the most notice and probably the best street cred as a cover artist. So I'm assuming you guys like it. Billy, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's a great album cover, but I don't know, maybe it's because I'm not an artist. Like, I think there's plenty others that are equally as good or better that came after.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. Like, I guess I also read that, and I don't know how the concept always comes up or how it's developed, but I'm pretty sure I read like Dave and Ed were sitting together, like in front of the United Nations, which is in the background, and they kind of came up with the concept together. So
they did, yes.
I mean, obviously Ed's the one who it, so he gets the credit, but like, given Dave is equally responsible for the concept, like I don't know, but yeah, it's very good. It's a beautiful album cover. I love it, but I think he's gonna have many other amazing album covers just as good.
Yeah, well, Rust in Peace is a great cover as well.
So. Yeah. Well, we're gonna have 30 of them coming up soon.
That's right, exactly. Good segue. And Jimmy, what's your thoughts?
Oh yeah, I mean, Ed Repka is very smart because back in what a lot of young people have to understand is when you went into the record store back in the day, you saw it was a game of what are you going to look at? What are you going to, what are you going to pick up? And this is just for visual things here. You're going to pick up Asia's album or are you going to pick this up?
You're going to pick this.
Just looking at it being, and that's like everybody has to remember, it's a bad example, but you know what I mean. Like
and we're gonna take your metal membership away because you have an Asian album.
It was just sitting here. I don't know why.
You don't know why, eh?
You walk into the record store and you haven't heard a lot of it. Like the singles that usually came out after the album was released because you sold the singles. You had to physically buy the singles. They weren't. Yeah, they were being played on the radio and whatnot, but you had to buy the singles. So they came out maybe a few weeks before or whatever, but it wasn't like now where sometimes we get 6 singles on a 10 track album, months before the album even drops. And then the album drops and it just kind of comes and goes because there's not a huge demand for physical copies of this stuff anymore. But back then you were fighting with Iron Maiden with Eddie on there, and I think getting Ed Repka to draw Vic Rattlehead and do this in front of that, I think it's so smart. I mean, iconic album art is it's art, and it's just back then it was just as important getting people to buy the albums because nobody, and then videos were coming out just before this album. With the video stations in the early 80s. But before that, you had no idea. Sometimes you didn't know. When I bought the first Grim Reaper album, I bought it on album art alone because it looked cool. I bought Metallica's Kill 'Em All when I saw the album. I had never listened to it before. I didn't know. So, you know, that's, you got to fight for that. And I think that was so important. As far as I'm concerned, yeah, it's an iconic album cover. And I think Ed Repka just has done so many of them. It's just what a great artist. And I mean, he is truly the artist for, you know, the metal band.
Metal.
So,
yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, it's funny because I know that the first album cover was not Dave's. It wasn't his idea. That was actually put together by one of the AR reps for
it
the
shows.
label. Yeah. So he didn't. He hated it. He hated it. He didn't want it. He didn't want that as the cover, but it got picked.
Yeah.
And so, from my understanding, when Peace Cells came out, that is the official version of Vic Rattlehead, and I think that's why it's sort of important to both Dave, of course, because that's, you know, that's just like part of the commercial package to Megadeth, because it's on T-shirts, action figures.
Oh yeah,
like you name it, you have it. Like I even have the official Vic Rattlehead action figure. So it's like, you know, so I mean, it's cool. It's cool in that regards. So I understand the significance of it, but I mean, Billy's got a good point too. I mean, there are a lot of better album covers that he's done afterwards. Like his skill is great, and tonight we'll be discussing all our top 10. So that'll be interesting to get to at the end of the towards the end of the show. Okay, so the last question I have is more for you guys, because you guys are the two big, huge collectors. Does anyone own the 2004 remaster that was mixed by Dave? Does anyone own that? We'll start with you, Billy. No?
No, just the original vinyl.
Yeah, this is
and the original CD.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the remixed and remasters. I think this is it here, but it's not the one with the darker cover. This one only has bonus tracks of Wake Up Dead. It's got the Randy Burns mix on it. But yeah,
I have that one too.
I think is early 2000s. It's got the remix and remaster.
I think it's 2004.
Yeah, I think this is it.
But there was also the 25th anniversary box.
Yeah, I don't
Does anyone have that? No? Billy?
No.
I'm surprised you don't have that, Billy. I'm shocked.
No, like if I have the original like vinyl pressing from the 80s, they always sound way better to my ears. So I don't bother chasing.
Okay, fair enough. I just wanted to ask because I know it's it's some people really like the box, the 25th anniversary box set. I don't own it either. I just have the original on cassette like Jimmy, and I have the 2004 remaster, which I actually like more because I think it sounds better to me for some reason.
And the pictures of the band in the cassette. I mean, you know, Chris Poland looks like he's 12.
Yeah, he does. You're right. He does. That's funny. That's funny you brought that up. But I'd have to dig up my cassette.
It almost looks like the Celtic Frost Cold Lake.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is a bit funny, like to be doing it at that time.
Yeah.
He's looking like a bit like Kurt Victor Bryant there.
Yeah.
I concur him that I can see that. That's a good point, Billy. That's a really good point. It's funny. All right, so that'll include our questions for the evenings. Good going, guys. I'm glad everybody had their thoughts and we were able to share that. So we're going to move in now to the not so much a bio on the band, but just some quick thoughts about what led up to this album. So it was released originally on September 26th on it was Combat Records, but then Capitol Records ended up purchasing a contract with the band and then re-released the album with a new remix with what is his name, Paul Lanny, I believe, over Randy Burns. So that's interesting. And Lanny was actually brought in by Capitol Records, so I don't think Dave had much of a say on that. We all know that this album was a pain to record because of what happened with Chris and Gar, both being on drugs and fucked up and then not showing up for practice and rehearsals. So that really sucked. But they managed to get through it, of course. And then after the promotional tour ended, Dave turned around and gave them the X. And out they went. It's funny at the time, there's all these weird things that happened. Like both Dave and Junior were homeless at the time. So it's kind of funny. And then they get this budget of 25,000 with combat, and then they fuck it up and use it. And but apparently I did read that the budget that they did get from combat, they did use it to hire Randy Burns in the first place. So that was, at least Dave was smart enough to realize that, instead of like buying cocaine and whatever else the hell he was like into doing at the time. So I think it's kind of cool. It charted at number 76 on the US Billboard 200. It went platinum in both Canada and the US. So I thought this record would have been bigger for sales, but apparently it doesn't seem like it wasn't, which is, I don't know.
Well, platinum in the US is 1 million copies. That's
yeah, okay, yeah, sure. I just 76 to start on the Billboard charts. That's
Yeah, but it's the Billboard, right? Like, so he was competing. They were competing
with Whitney Houston,
against Michael Jackson, and
true. That's a really good point. That's a good point. And it's also the first album where they decided to write, and this is more my forte, socially conscious lyrics. And Dave was pretty vocal about that they wanted to sort of, and I think even Junior mentioned this too, that they wanted to sort of change the idea of what thrash metal was with these kind of lyrics. And they're one of the first few bands at the time that started doing lyrics that were like about the political climate of the time and a lot of social issues. So I think that's kind of a significant thing for the album itself. All right, so we'll start with our album breakdown. Our first song of the evening, Wake Up Dead, the lead single. There was a video that they filmed in the 80s. It wasn't the first video. I think Peace Cells was the first video that they did, but they did this as the second one in 87 for the video. And they were apparently, I watched the video, they were in a steel cage for all of it. Kind of funny. It's interesting. So we'll start off, and Jimmy, we'll start off with you. What do you think of Wake Up?
Love this song, and I love you brought up the video, because the video was directed by Penelope Spheris.
Yes.
Who did the Decline of Western Civilization, like, I think 3 movies. There was the first one, I think it was Punk or something. I don't know. Anyways, part 2 was the one, and she got Megadeth on it, and she directed this video with the blue hue in the cage, and the fans kind of rioting and going crazy at a thrash concert. I mean, it was so cool, and she definitely captured the band and what it was worth. And what I really like, the tie-in with the Decline of Western Civilization, the
documentary,
the documentary, is that the last scenes that were filmed in that were kind of like they were going through bands, and it was like almost like Dave Mustaine had the last word, and then they went out, I think, with Megadeth playing, and it was like a live show, and it was really cool when they were rolling the credits and whatnot. And it was neat because this whole thing was centered around sort of the hair metal kind of thing in LA at the time. But you could see the shifting from that. I mean, they had Cryptic Slaughter was in there for a cameo and that, but it went from that, they were interviewing Kiss, Aerosmith, and all these bands, and then Tough and all the hair metal bands. And then they flipped over to where kind of like where things are going. And that would be kind of thrash gaining. In my mind, it was like a natural progression to where popularity of thrash was coming on. And it was kind of smart. It was smart for Dave probably to get the band in there. I know from an interview I saw, she wanted Metallica, and they obviously were too big at the time. So Dave jumped on it, and I mean, he's a big part of it and made some really good points in it. The song is amazing. I mean, it has the most identifiable intro. I love kind of his spoken word at the start of it, which is great, that intro. The guitar riffs. I mean, this is the best song to start the album with. And, it's just amazing. And I like it. And the musicianship in this song just is a taste of what's to come throughout the whole album.
Very true. Very true. And Billy, what do you think of it?
Yeah, no, it's a good song. I mean, this and the title track are the most played
Yeah.
the two most played live songs by the band. Yeah, I mean, like hearing this, two things you notice right away versus the first album, the production's way better.
Yep.
Uh, and so that comes right out for sure. And just songwriting and musicianship's a huge step up. So
Yeah.
you get that immediately, you get hit in the head with that. But yeah, no, good. I mean, you're already going to see Ellison's bass is like up front,
Yes.
and it's going to be up front for many of the tracks.
Yes.
I mean, you're introduced to the Chris and Dave guitar duo here, and so they shine. One thing I really like and I find so interesting, like at about the 120 mark, there's that sort of like a riff section, and that is identical to the way Germany's tech thrash band Mekong Delta plays.
Yeah.
That's an exact line that's on the Dances with Death album by Mekong Delta. And so, I mean, Megadeth comes first, so I'm not saying they ripped it off. It might be for the two bands' love of, some of that 70s jazz fusion style. But so I think that's pretty cool. And then you get like at 240, there's a nice shift where there's like a jazzy, funky sort of tempo change that kicks in. That's really cool. But yeah, it's great. The lead works good and kind of ends nicely with Dave kind of shouting, "Wake up, Dad." And
Yeah.
yeah, it's a good way. The only thing I don't like about the song is
Okay.
something Jimmy liked, but I call it Dave's talk singing.
I
Like,
love
I
it.
can
Yeah,
stand that.
yeah.
Like, and again, personal preference, but
I love
I
it.
just like Dave. I like him at the to the end of the song. I think he sounds better, but I hate when he does that.
Ah,
Yeah, but I think though this is a very personal song for Dave because it's all about like, going on partying and then coming home and his girlfriend's sleeping and he's afraid she's gonna fucking kill him. But apparently the real story or the inspiration to the story for the lyrics is that he at the time he had a girlfriend who he was living with, but he was cheating on her, and he was scared to leave her because she told him if he left she would kill him. So I guess that's the impetus for the lyrics of "Wake Up Dead." So I thought that was kind of funny. The only thing I'm going to add to what you were saying, Billy, was I love that at the 204 mark when you get that kind of almost it's like a chug, but it sounds like rattling chains.
mm,
I just love that bit is just whoa. It's just one of that little bits that I love. And then the only thing I wanted to add was that the locomotive chug in this is what I really think drives the song to me. It's just all the way through it. It's so great. It's such a great song. And I'm on the side of Jim. I agree. I prefer the actual. I don't mind the talky kind of singy vocals because he's trying. I think with this song he's telling a story as opposed to writing a song. It's more about I want to get this off my chest. That's
I mean,
my,
I
my
can see
interpretation.
Billy's point. Like sweating bullets is
Yeah,
probably not your favorite, Billy.
No,
yeah,
I mean, it's fine. Like if he's telling a
Yeah,
story,
yeah.
I get it. Like it's just me personally.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
annoying his voice that way. It
No, there's
almost
a lot of
comes
people
out to
like that.
me as whiny.
yeah. I get it. I
Yeah.
totally understand where you're coming from, Billy. I mean,
I
it's
like
not
it
for
only because I
everyone.
like the build up. And
Yeah,
I think it just,
Yeah,
for me, it's like, and I love Dave's voice. So for me, it's like a
yeah,
win-win.
yeah.
I think when we were talking Thrash vocalist top 10 there a few months back, he
yeah.
was my number one. And I even laughed and said, I'll be the only one picking him. Like,
But I mean, my only criticism of the song is that like 10 seconds
yeah,
where
Yeah,
they,
yeah,
like
yeah.
otherwise, I think it's a great song.
that's a
And when he
killer
gets into
song.
the chorus, he's really good with that, like the "Wake Up Dead," and it's really good. But yeah, I understand both sides. I understand it. So we'll move on to track two, "The Conjuring," and Billy, we'll start with you and what's your thoughts about it?
Yeah, no, it's another great. So I know a lot of people kind of comment on the first three being like one of the greatest three opening songs. I might like more of the stuff that comes after,
Oh, devil's island.
but yeah, this is still a great song. A kind of melodic opening here, and they're going to use that a fair amount coming up over the rest of the album. The melodic type intros, but again, the bass chugs are
Yeah,
at the beginning.
And this
I
one,
think
yes.
that's pretty cool. Unfortunately, there's a little bit of Dave talk singing early again.
Yeah.
But again, I like him later on, so that's cool. But then, kind of at the 1 minute mark, we go from that slower pace and the track kind of explodes. So that's cool. And then we get some, the musicianship starts to really get on display, right? I mean, the whole band's on fire. There's some great tempo changes that jump in and out of this song, some of them unexpected. The riffs are fantastic. The solos, I mean, it's a great one. And like I said, Dave, I actually like him more in the faster parts of the song. So yeah, I think it's another great song. And, like most of the songs musically, it's very strong.
Yeah, I think it has a really evil vibe
Mhm.
to it. That's why I like it. And it's funny, I read in one interview, Dave was quoted, this is like years back. He said that a lot of guys make their guitars sound like they're singing, but he goes, mine sound like I'm puking. So I
It's a
thought
good.
that was I thought it was good when he said that. I was like, that's really cool. And he goes, that's metal. Like, okay, that's interesting. So the guy lives and breathes it for sure. And Jimmy, what do you think of the content?
It's my favorite song next to Devil's Island, which I'm going to give away
Okay.
anyways. I mean, this is an amazing track. I love everything Billy said, and I like the talk singing. At 2:26, the song sort of changes into a more melodic direction, but I mean, it's a dark song,
Yeah.
and I love it. I just think it's great. And I like Billy. I don't necessarily think 1, 2, and 3 are the best songs on the album. I love 4. I love there's a lot of songs in the back end of the
I
album
think a
that
lot
are
of them are all
wicked.
good.
Yeah, but I mean it's like a good 1-2 punch. I mean these are legendary hits for this band, and I mean 1, 2, and 3 right off the bat are huge. So I love it. I love the song. It's tied with my favorite.
Cool. Yeah, I like the song a lot too. I know we were discussing this, but we started recording that because he became a Christian or a born again Christian or whatever you want to call him, he decided not to play this song anymore. So the last time it was played was 2001, 17 years, and then he played it in 2018 in the Czech Republic at a live show. And then Jimmy, you were saying
Yeah,
earlier
he
that he
played it in
played it in
Halifax last
Halifax.
year.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's cool that he's playing that song again. I mean, I guess maybe he has this issue with the idea of the black magic, because apparently he says the song is about black magic and it contains instructions on how to create hexes. So I
Great.
was like, okay, interesting. But regardless, I think it's a great song too. I just think it's a fantastic song from like start to finish. All right, so we'll move into the track that a lot of people dig. Peace Sells, the title track. And Jimmy, what's your thoughts?
I mean it's their most recognizable, probably their biggest hit. I mean, it's that bass again. Billy brings it up, and it's like this isn't a time when maybe bass wasn't as predominant necessarily on a lot of these albums. But man, musically, this album is so tight. This song is wicked. I mean, that bass intro mixed with that riff is just dun, 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 dun. I mean, it just gets going. What do you mean I believe in God? I love it. I love it. This is a great song. It's not my favorite song only because it's probably been the shit's been played out of it. But
Sure.
I mean, I could listen to this over and over and over again. It's a great song, and I mean, such a big hit for them. And I mean, it's so good, and the social writing in it is just so wicked too. Like
Yeah.
it's just I go to court when I have to. I love his voice in this. That's classic pissed off Dave.
Yeah. The lyrics are great. The lyrics are great. I mean, because it's all basically you're getting Dave's reflecting on this idea of his political beliefs.
Yeah.
And what he's saying is that he hates the current political structure in America and wishes for like a new paradigm, a shift to change it. So the lyrics all have that, and it's great. You're right. Like I go to court when I.
What do you mean I don't support your system?
Yeah. I don't support your kind. Yeah, it's got some really biting lyrics.
Yeah.
But, Billy, what do you think of the song?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably the most famous song from the album, but not the best one in my eyes. But
no.
Yeah, I mean, obviously opens with probably one of the most famous bass lines. I think it's interesting though. I read that Dave wrote the entire bass line, so
Really?
Mustaine, right? So Ellison didn't write any of that bass line. And also interesting that that bass line became so popular. It was the theme song to the MTV
MTV.
News. So
Yeah.
that's pretty cool. The other interesting fact that I read is apparently this song originally was 8 minutes. And actually Gar gets the credit for talking Dave off of it. It had a couple significant directional shifts, and Gar said take it back to the main 4 minutes and the main theme, and Dave sort of agreed with him. So that's how it got to this length. But yeah, I love, Jimmy mentioned it has that cool like mid-pace groove like through the middle part, but it does also really pick up pace at the end.
Yes.
Yeah.
It has a really good chorus. And kind of at that 1 minute mark, there's some interesting, like during Dave's singing, there's some great interplay with like Dave's vocal, and then there'll be like a quick guitar line, and then back to the vocal, a quick guitar. So that's kind of cool. Like this is the only song where they kind of do that. So that's kind of interesting. But yeah, the second half for me is much better than the first half, where they start to shred and pick up the pace. It becomes more thrash oriented in the second half.
And when he starts off with the line, can you put a price on
Yeah.
peace?
Yeah.
And then it just starts
Yeah.
going. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the great part.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that song too. It's a great song. There's no question about the song. Oh, just to add to your point though, Billy, apparently Dave bitched that they never received royalties for that MTV use of the bass line. According to what he says that they never fucking paid the band, but I don't know.
I don't know
I,
how that could not be. I mean,
I know, especially
if he
back in
was
those
if
days.
he had any brains, he'd hire a lawyer and go after them.
Yeah.
well, but with Dave, it's always hyperbole, right? Sometimes you got to wonder
Yeah. We don't know if it's true.
if
Yeah.
he's fucking bullshitting you or whatever. But I just thought that was an interesting little point to add on to it. Okay, so track 4, Devil's Island. This is one of the better songs I think on the album. I like the fact that it's about a French penal colony that's off the French coast of Guyana. And apparently, there's even a movie based, sort of not on the song, but on the actual events of that happened at the penal colony called Papillon, which is a really good movie I've seen that I really, really liked. But this is kind of an interesting song lyrically, and I wanted to talk about the lyrics before we got into the actual music part of it, because it's all about this dude who's on the island. He's waiting to be executed for whatever crimes. He gets spared by God, and then he finds out that the catch here is that he has to spend the rest of his life on the island. So I think it's kind of a unique song for that reason. It is a banger. So we'll start with you, Billy. Take it away.
Yeah, no, it's a good track. It's a banger, but it's also very different in that it's also not a banger
Right.
to some degree. But yeah, I mean, I like the opening, the drums and Chris's solo to open the track. There's a cool like bass solo that comes in, and it's only bass, right? All the other guys just shut it down. So that's kind of cool. But like this one, like the chorus is like almost like hard rock in nature. It's so damn catchy, and Dave's more singing than he is like, grinding his teeth. Like he actually sings in this one. So yeah, the chorus is really good. It's like an anthemic chorus. And so yeah, I really like that. But like for me, the best part of the song, like at about 2:45, there's actually a solo that
Solo,
just
yes.
rips.
Yeah.
Like it comes the closest to what we got on Rust in Peace. It almost sounds like it could have been on there. So yeah, that's really cool. And that whole last minute, it kind of, or the last, 45 seconds, it has this great like instrumental section. And then just kind of ends with the gang chorus coming back in. So yeah, I think it's pretty good, but I think it's different than the first couple because it has like that more mainstream and catchier feel to it.
Now, I almost thought the opening was kind of doomy for me.
Yeah.
And then that bass line kicks in like 39 seconds into it. Like I kind of like it. I thought there's a lot of piss and vinegar in this in the chorus and stuff, just the way he sings it.
But you don't find it more melodic and like catchy than anything
No,
else?
I know, I do. No, I do. I
Yeah,
agree with. No, I do agree with
yeah,
you. It is. It when he's the Devil's Island, he's singing that. Yeah,
yeah.
you're right. It is a very catchy song for sure. I totally would agree with you. Jim, you want to add any
Oh
thoughts?
yeah, it's one of my favorite Megadeth songs. I love it
Okay.
because I love how the vocals cut in at the start. It's so quick and he's high pitched. I like his high pitched vocals on that when he just starts rolling it out, and the bass in it's phenomenal. I mean, this song is bass song, and it's got that great chug that just keeps going. I think it's got great melodic parts to it. I find it kind of doomy as well. This and the next song. But I love it. I think it's a great album. I always often wondered, like, I think it's just as catchy as the first three. And I always lump it into it's probably one of my top one or top two favorite Megadeth songs. And I agree with Billy. This song probably could have fit right in on Rust in Peace. There's parts of it. I got 244, that
I could see
guitar
that.
solo
Yeah.
that cuts in. I mean, that's phenomenal. It's a great song. Great song.
So, Billy, you think you could see this song on Rust in Peace?
Not the song, but the solo
The parts
section.
right. Okay.
Yeah,
So you,
yeah, yeah,
okay.
yeah. Dave Net doesn't do that. Like the chorus is a little too catchy and basic versus what was on
True.
Rust in Peace, I think. But
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. So track 5 is the kind of two-piece song, Good Morning instrumental, and then the song Black Friday. Jim, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I find this kind of a much more heavier, darker sound to it.
Yep.
It's got maybe some sludgy parts to it, but I mean, you've got like 111, 110, the guitars kind of heavy guitars cut in. I think Dave doesn't start singing till like 152.
Yep.
So you're just, I mean, it's really neat. I think it's got a great kind of acoustical kind of intro start. I mean, musically, this song is really, really, it's got some technical bits to it too that I really, really like. I think it's a great song. It's got a good spot in the album. I mean, you got 4 really, in my mind, popular crowd. You know, I mean, not every song on the album is going to be a hit, but I think for true like Megadeth fans, I think this is a great, great track.
Yeah, I would agree. And Billy?
yeah, I like it's one of my favorites on the album. I mean, it's almost 7 minutes, so
Yeah.
musically the band can really open up, and we kind of go all over the place, right?
Yeah.
It's the most epic track, and so it's pretty cool. Like it starts out like acoustically, and then all kinds of tempo changes.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it really does a good job, kind of building tension, in the earlier part of the song for what comes later. But yeah, like musically, it's really good. There's some really great, like when I say build tension, it kind of gets released at like the 2.5 minute mark. It
Yeah.
really start like the frantic lead work and the riffs, and we're clearly on the Black Friday side of things at that point. So yeah, it's really good. And Gar, like, so this is something we talked about actually on the Sacrifice album thing, but there's actually a lot of great cymbal work on here.
Yes. Yeah.
Some intricate cymbal work that's like popping in and out. So that's really cool. And also we get there's some backing vocals that come in here as well. That's pretty easy to sing along with. So yeah, I like it. I like it because it goes in different directions.
Mm-hmm.
Long and long is not necessarily always good, but they get to go. You go through a journey with the band, which is pretty cool on this one.
Well, what's kind of funny though, when you mentioned Gar, apparently, and I don't know how true this is, but according to what I was reading, Dave apparently the song was inspired by another drummer that they had in before Gar, and apparently this
Yeah.
drummer supposedly was into like he was kind of really into like black magic and the occultism and stuff. So Dave Dave apparently supposedly wrote the song based on that, because the song technically is about a homicidal maniac who's on a killing spree, which the song is kind of gory, has kind of violent lyrics, and it's about describing a serial killer. So I think that's kind of fun. That's why I like the song. Although when I first heard Black Friday, I thought it was maybe like a homage to the classic Boris Karloff, Bela Lugosi Universal classic Black Friday horror movie, but it wasn't. But I always thought that was kind of funny. But it is a really, really good song. It's nasty as hell. It really crushes at the 3 minute mark and onwards. I think it's a great song, and I like Dave's raspy voice here.
Mm.
I think it really works for the song itself, but it's pretty solid. Okay, so we'll go to track number 6, Bad Omen. And Jim, what do you think of Bad Omen?
Yeah, it's another great track. I mean, this one's got a really dark groove to it, and it's another darker song. I mean, at 2:51, the song just comes to a complete halt, and then it rips into a solo. I think that's pretty cool. You know, musically, it's a great track. I like it. You know, it's coming up to a cover after this, so I mean, this kind of sets it up. I really, really like. I think it's a good dark track. I think it's this album by this point is already, there's a lot of sort of dark groove that goes with it, and I think the lyrically in that it pushes it more into more of not necessarily a cult, but more like you've been saying on a few tracks about black magic and stuff. I think it's kind of neat that they're venturing into that sort of stuff, and it kind of has that darker groove for me.
Yeah, and of course, the lyrics are all about like occultism and stuff on it. So, I know I was reading that people were often at the time would ask him like, "Why do you guys practice witchcraft and black magic?" And of course, he's like, "No, we don't condone it, but you know, we're aware of it."
Mm-hmm.
So that's a bit of hyperbole from Dave, I guess. You take his word for what he's saying, but yeah, I think it's a really dark song too. What are your thoughts about this, Billy?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think musically it's pretty good. Like, it's probably, I mean, forget about the cover. We'll talk about the cover, but this is probably
I
my
have some thoughts about
favorite.
that.
This is my least favorite real song on the album.
Yeah.
I still think it's pretty good. It's just not as memorable.
Okay.
I mean, it's got a slower, like, guitar driven intro, and that's becoming a bit of a theme. Like, they've done it a few times now. So yeah, I mean, that is what it is. There is a pretty cool part there though, where you actually get like this nice interplay at the beginning, where you kind of got Chris does a lead, and then it goes right into Steve Ellison's bass line, and then you get the heavy guitar chug. Like that's kind of cool. Vocals only come in at like 140. As Jim said, the thing explodes like just past 2.5. But one thing I do like musically about the groove, and this maybe is Gar, I don't know, but it actually has a real, like, again, this is where that jazz fusion groove comes in, right? Like it sort of roots me back to that 70s feel. I mean, it's still obviously a heavy song, but just if you listen carefully, you can kind of hear that groove. But as I said, it's probably it's a good song, but my least least enjoyable song on the album.
Yeah. Do you like that at the 250 mark when that chug starts?
Yeah.
Wow, that's I was reading a lot of people seem to like that part of the song a lot.
Well, that saves the song, in my opinion.
Right.
That's what
Okay, that's a good point. That's a good point. Okay. So of course the contentious song is "I Ain't Superstitious," written by Willie Dixon and recorded by Howlin' Wolf in 1961. Now, I'm going to start this off because I want to defend it, because I actually think I like the song. I've heard both. I went back to hear the original jazz blues song, and it's kind of uplifting and saucy at times, but here it's transcribed into a metal song. And a lot of people were saying, "Oh, this is garbage. Why is this on the album?" I think there's a lot of reason why the song's on the album. I think first of all, Poland does all the solos here, so obviously I think both Poland and Gar, being their backgrounds as jazz musician or into jazz fusion, I could see why they'd want to play this song live. It would appease them. But I also think that a lot of like classic blues songs of this kind of ilk always have a supernatural bent to them, like the idea of like going to the crossroads and meeting the devil kind of thing. So I think the song isn't just done for the sake of it. I think there's a reason why it's on here, in my opinion. I mean, I could be wrong, but that's just my thoughts. But we'll start with you, Jim. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't like it.
You don't like
I
it?
think
Well, tell us what you feel, Jim.
Oh, whatever.
although I gotta admit, Ken, you shed a bit of light for me on it. Not that I'm, it makes sense to me now that you've kind of said that. But I just find it sounds to me like, I mean, I never listened to the original cover, but it sounds to me like a Southern rock Aerosmith song set to trying to be thrash. But I appreciate what they're doing, and it sounds okay. It's just, I don't know. I don't, and you explaining the fact that it has more, and it makes sense with those older songs hitting the crossroads with with an entity or something, sell your soul to be famous, or sell, to be a better guitar player or whatever. I think that makes better sense, and I kind of would like it a little bit better, but nah, I just find it's unneeded and irrelevant for me on the album.
Okay. And Billy, how about you?
Yeah, I lean more towards Jim, but it's interesting. So yeah, it is Chris and Gar. Like, so I read an interview with Chris. He picked it not because of Willie Dixon. That's not where he heard it. He actually heard it with both Gar and Chris loved Jeff Beck, and Jeff Beck did the cover of it, which is where they got it from. So that takes out some of the blues superstition stuff because they didn't even hear the original blues version. But the interesting thing is, apparently Willie Dixon heard it, and he actually gave praise to the song. I mean, so that's kind of interesting. So you're not the only one, Ken. The original songwriter apparently liked it, so that's kind of cool. And like musically, it's okay. Like I guess I agree with Ken. Like where I think it falls apart is Dave is just a disaster singing this song. Like it just doesn't match his vocal range. But musically, I could see, like I think that makes some sense. Like I don't mind it. Like it's not terrible, and I like how they do turn it. Like it really speeds up, kind of like at 2 minutes, and gets really thrashy, as you said, Ken. So yeah, I think it's kind of cool. And I don't know, is it better than the first album and Nancy Sinatra's these?
For sure.
But
I think it's better than that.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
So do I.
But you guys are like, so this is what, 86?
86, yeah.
So is it, how Metallica became known for covers, right? Doing, all their covers. Like, was Metallica doing covers in 86? I don't remember.
Yep.
Yeah.
So so is that like
They did Am I Evil and
Am I Evil, right? Yeah. Okay,
yeah. They were doing it.
And they were doing Misfits covers. Yeah.
And that's why I think why this song is on here as well. I could also see Dave agreeing, oh yeah, we got to do what Metallica's doing.
Well, the first three albums, he's got a cover on it. He's got the first one, this one, and on the next one with Anarchy.
Yeah. But that's kind of what I would think. But I don't know.
I
don't mind it. I don't think the song's all that bad.
I think Metallica's picks, like, I'll be honest,
better,
when I was a kid and first heard Blitzkrieg and Am I Evil, I thought they were Metallica songs.
So did I.
Me too, yeah.
Am I Evil, I thought it was a Metallica song.
Yeah.
But they're great. Bread Fans, a good song. Am I Evil?
Yep, and they are on the Kill 'Em All rematch, or the re-release in '86. I think they re-released the cassette after the first Bonsai Records, and they added those two songs to it.
Yeah, it's great.
Don't they do a Bob Seger song too? If I remember.
Oh yeah, Turn the Page.
That wasn't bad. Yeah, that was okay.
Turn the Page. Yeah.
That was good.
Yeah, that's later. That's around the reload time, was it not?
That would have been Garage Inc. there.
Oh, Garage Inc. Okay.
Yeah.
It was before, right?
Yeah, and they had Whiskey in a Jar as well.
Right. I remember that. Yeah.
Which is that's good too.
It's all right. I prefer the first Garage Days EPP they did back in.
So do I. I love
that. That to me was so great. I prefer that one. The second one, it's okay. But anyways.
Yeah.
All right. Last song of the album, My Last Words, and we'll get this to Billy. What's your thoughts? What's your words on this one here? sir?
Yeah, I like this one. This is one of
Mhm.
my favorite tracks. Like, I think
Okay.
it's a good. I actually think it's the hidden gem on the album.
Mhm.
Okay.
It tends to get overlooked for some of the more popular ones. Like sometimes, like when I listen to this song, I don't know if you guys get that feel. It almost feels like maybe it could have been on the first Megadeth album. Like it shares some similarities. I mean, it's not the same, but it's the closest thing I feel that comes to that first album. But once again, we're getting that clean melodic intro again, and the bass is coming in. So this is like 3 or 4 songs where they've kind of done that. But Dave's vocals are not as intense. I really like them on this track. It's really cool. The riffs are good. Another song that kind of builds its way up, and then kind of, Dave does that mini scream at sort of 320, and then it just completely takes it off. I just love Dave and Chris shredding. That comes right after that. Some good gang vocals, and yeah. So this song ends with a bang, and so that's a great way to end a thrash album with a bang. So yeah, it's great. It has everything: aggressiveness. It's moody. It's melodic,
Yep.
and again, great musicianship.
Yep. Well said, dude. And you, Jim?
I agree. I think it's one of the better songs on the album. I love that guitar picking intro when it comes in, and that 52-second mark where the heavy riffs cut in. I mean, it's a great, and I love Dave's vocals on it as well. Just
Yeah,
like
me
Billy
too.
said, I
I
think
do
this is a
too.
great
Yeah.
way to end off
Yeah,
an
he's good
album.
here.
And I gotta be honest, like there's you might as well, they left it all on the court or all on the ice on this, and that's what I like. You can't ask for better closing tracks. I mean, you could hide this in the album somewhere else and throw Peace Cells as the last, but that's a cop out. I think it's a great song that stands alone, and I think it's an underrated. It loses. It's not as identifiable because of the hits on the first part of the album. I mean, this would be probably a 16-year-old buying it there back in the day, probably, wants to listen to Peace Cells, or The Conjuring or whatever. And Devil's Island probably caught some play because it's on right afterwards. But this is definitely a strong song, and I love the way they end off the album with it.
Well, dark. I mean, like it's all
Yeah.
about Russian roulette. That's the whole
Yeah.
point of the song. It's and the fear that it causes you playing that game. So I think it's great. It's dark as hell. I also read that Kirk Hammett has stated this is his favorite Megadeth song. So I
Cool.
thought that was kind of interesting.
I think I read that too.
Yeah, this is his favorite song. So that's cool. That's a nice little nod to Dave. I mean,
Yeah.
at least the band still continues to acknowledge Dave and his contributions to thrash and metal and all that jazz. But it's a good way to close out the album for sure. It's
Yep.
Everything you guys said, I totally agree with. It's a great song. So and that's pretty much the end of Peace Sells, but Who's Buying?
Great album.
Do you guys have any final thoughts about it?
No, it's a great album.
Yeah.
I want to see what albums you guys picked.
Oh,
This is going to be the fun part.
yep. Okay. Well, so I think we've said enough about the album itself. So what we're gonna do
Sorry,
now?
I don't mean to push us off of it.
No, not at all. No. I mean, I think we said it all during the song breakdown. So I mean, what more can you say? It's a classic thrash album, and if you don't own it, go get it.
Yeah.
That's it.
And it's time to
Okay.
pay respect to the great Ed Repka.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and that'll be our segue in tonight's final topic. We decided to do a top 10 of the best Ed Repka covers, and Ed's did so many covers.
Mhm.
So, all right, so we'll start this off. Who wants to go first tonight?
I'll go first.
Go for it, Jimmy.
Okay, so I hope I got all Ed Repka. I'm pretty sure I did in my.
I know I checked your
Well,
list.
I've
I don't
made
wanna
that
come up with a
mistake
cover.
before. I've made that mistake before, but Ken will correct us.
So I've got some multiples on here, obviously, but number 10, Death, Scream, Bloody Gore. Oh my God, Death. They've got a couple other ones on here. Love that album cover. I just love Death. Number 9, 3 Inches of Blood. I talked about this, I think, on one of the other, that Advance and Anguish. I like that cover with all the soldiers. Oh man, that's wicked. And it's kind of a little bit different than what he normally does for artwork.
Yeah.
I like it. I think it's really cool. And I like 3 Inches of Blood. So it's a win-win. Number 8, Municipal Waste, Hazardous Mutation. I mean, Municipal Waste is awesome, but that album cover is so cool. Violence, Eternal Nightmare. What can you say about that? I picked kind of a weird one for my number 6, Sanctuary, Refugee Denied. I like that album cover, and I like Sanctuary. So I'm big into that band. I like that band. It's cool. It's got kind of a funky album cover.
Before you move on, Jim, like this is the redo to that.
Oh,
yeah,
which I love a lot.
Yeah,
I actually like this cover better than the original, but
neat.
That's my opinion.
Cool.
Yeah, Inception.
Wicked. Megadeth, Rust in Peace, one of my favorite album covers. I think that's so cool and so poignant. Evil Dead, I mean, Annihilation of Civilization. Man, you gotta love these album covers. Number 3, Leprosy, Death. I mean, I think we're gonna have a lot of cross coverage on that, but I love that album cover. Number 2 is this, Peace Sells. And my number 1, I love Spiritual Healing by Death. I mean, my God, that album cover, I still go back to, there it is there. Yeah, and I've seen where he drew that. Like, I saw pictures of him, like, doing the drawings, and just how he came to those. It's so cool, man. The guy's a fucking genius.
Yeah.
So those are my list. And I mean, again, too, we got to grow up, and I think that's what a lot of young people, we got to grow up in a time when in a lot of cases, you picked albums that you're going to buy on your allowance money on the more brutal and the more aggressive and the more cooler album covers, you would be able to see before you sometimes even heard the music. So, it was a big part of record buying back in the 80s.
Well, I'm going to sound like the Clint Eastwood "Get Off My Lawn," but this artwork is by far the better work that you don't get nowadays.
Exactly.
A lot of artists now are using digital artwork, and it's all right, but I'm not a huge fan of digital style artwork. I like it when a guy did it by hand.
Yep.
He's at his drawing desk. But I think even now, though, Ed also does incorporate digital illustration in his work. But I guess it's just sign of the times.
Yeah.
But I would be curious, like someone who actually has like access to one of the more powerful like AI engines, and not the free ones. If you actually you could feed in the album covers, all of Ed Repka album covers, and have it learn from that, and then have it. I'd be so curious to see what would get kicked out. Right, most bands are just using the free do me an album cover featuring this, but if you feed in every single the 50, 60, 100 Ed Repka album covers, I'd be pretty damn curious to see what would get kicked out.
That's true.
That's a good point. I never thought of that.
Yeah, that's cool.
Pretty good point.
You got to feed it in.
Yeah. I'm sure someone will do it. I mean, who knows? AI isn't going anywhere, so why not?
Yeah.
All right,
but Billy, and it's all better than the Asia cover.
I still don't know why that's doing on your shelf there, Jimmy.
I don't know.
I actually own that album too.
I don't know where it came from. I'll be honest.
Yeah. I'm just bugging you. I'm just kidding around.
I have that album too. So
yeah.
Not the only one, Jim. It's a famous Asia cover. So
yeah.
But yeah. Okay, Billy. Let's hear your list.
All right, so I'm not doing them in it's hard to put them in order.
Yeah, I know it is.
I pulled the album covers.
Nice.
So Leprosy is kind of the first one. And just one thing I really like about Ed's artwork, it always pops because he does a really interesting background.
Yes.
They're pinks, they're reds, they're he's very
orange
that way, right? It's just a color, but it always makes his artwork pop.
Yeah.
They're unusual colors, pinks. And so I mean, again, you could pick any of the 3. I had showed Death only because this is my favorite, but
I love it.
I knew you guys were going to cover it, so I didn't want to, I didn't pick it, but or Scream Bloody Gore. Number 2, again, same theme. You get the one of my all-time
good
favorite
one.
albums,
Yeah.
but Atheist, Piece of Time, a little bit more simple. It's just that timepiece, but
Yeah.
again, it has this evil feel, and again, that bright popping color that just makes it all pop. So that's kind of cool. And then I am partial to the
Yeah.
original, and
Yeah.
that's just
Cool.
because it's nostalgia. But yeah, Ken, that version's a great cover as well.
Just compare the two.
Yeah,
It's so different. Like,
Ken, did
yeah,
he
they're
do the
totally
second
different,
one?
right? Like
what's
so.
that, Jim?
Repka did both of them?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Both his
But
covers.
and again, we got the bright coloring in the background again, right? That
Yep.
sort of kicks in. So and then I don't know, I've been struggling, so I could have picked any gruesome album. They all kill. And I made
Yeah.
a last minute switch.
Okay.
I ended up going with Twisted Prayers.
Ooh.
Oh,
Mainly just because I love these guys on the bottom, right? Like they're so cool.
yeah.
And they're
It's like
so
The Walking
detailed.
Dead.
Huh?
It's like The Walking Dead. That is cool.
Yeah, like the
Yeah.
artwork is
And
really
it's all warm
detailed.
colors too. It's all warm colors that
Yeah.
he's using there.
Yeah,
So
good point. Yeah,
it's
for sure.
interesting.
Yeah.
It's for like rotting dead flesh. Like I kind of like it, but
Yeah.
that's a good
cool.
cover, man.
And then from home in Canada, I showed this one recently.
Oh,
I got
DBC?
into it.
Yeah.
It's
Oh.
Corrosive.
Corrosive, yeah, that's a good
Um,
cover.
So yeah, 2024 release, great album as well, but it's a little different for him as well, right? Don't you find, Ken? It's way more sci-fi.
Yeah, it's a bit more sci-fi, but
Yeah.
also I think this has a lot of digital illustration in it. You can see it in the back on the
It
colors.
looks kind of reminds me of
maybe.
a Geiger one.
Of a what?
Like Geiger?
Geiger,
Kinda?
yeah.
Yeah. It's a sci-fi. That's a cool cover.
But I guess it's, he's working with what the band wants, right?
And I think he did all of them, right? Like if you
Yeah.
go to the Ed Repka page, it only shows this one.
But he did
he
them all.
did the other albums, and they're all
Yeah.
equally, the covers are just as amazing.
Yes.
And then Jimmy picked this one,
Yeah.
Evil
Great
Dead.
cover.
Again, we did a whole podcast on this, but and then I kind of have excuse me, Toxic, Think This.
Good one.
I don't know if I'd say there's more meaning into the cover, like being
Yeah,
kind
it's pretty
of
cool
by
I like
everything. So that's cool. I mean, artistically, it's not as like shocking as the gruesome cover or the leprosy cover, but I think it's a smart cover.
But you know what's funny though, Billy? I've seen so many like other thrash bands hire artists to do a sort of similar style with this.
Yeah.
I could pull up several. It's just
Yeah.
funny. So
That's
I
cool.
guess he's influenced a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think Jim, you had this.
Yeah.
So
Yes, I know.
Massacre. That's kind of cool.
No.
The
Great cover.
green alien type creatures. They're kind of like bug-like.
Coming from hell, dude, from beyond.
Yeah. And then I picked I was a last minute change only because pick something that's like very brand new. And I don't know if this is digital as well, Ken, some digital stuff, but I went with the Morbid Saint cover.
That's a wicked album.
Sort of slashing up all the guys in the suits.
Yeah, I think
I don't know.
I don't want to say it's like full digital, but I know that some of the colors in the background, it's really even. When you do digital art coloring, you can see it. So I think he does cheat a little bit now.
Maybe.
I think he does, but that's
Great
a
album.
great cover, dude. That's an awesome cover.
Yeah. So and I was sitting there. I was looking through some of my more recent purchases. So I threw that in.
It reminds me of the Corpse Grinder cover he did as well.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very similar.
That.
That's right.
Yeah. I forgot about that. Cool. That's it. That's my
yours. Okay, cool. All right, so I got my age as well.
Your what?
My
age. I thought you said you have your aid. I'm like, what happened to the other thing?
No. Visual aids. So yeah, I'll start with number 10, and this is Merciless Death.
Yeah.
Zombie cover. I love this. I love this band. This is a really interesting band because they've got a couple albums out. They're on the heavy artillery label. Always liked them. A 3-piece band from I'm tongue tied. Los Angeles. I don't know. This is a great cover. I've always liked it. And then I'm gonna go with Ravage for number 9.
Oh, spiders,
Yeah,
wicked.
I love this one too. This is got I love the color choices here. That's it's bright, it pops. I like Ravage a lot. This is an earlier album, but yeah, I think that's pretty cool.
That has like a corrosive album cover
Yeah.
too, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So
you're
maybe
right.
corrosive's not that different after all.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah,
I
so
don't know when that came out, but
this would have been
probably earlier.
Tiny.
yeah,
Because corrosive was 2024, so
let me tell you this. I can't read it here. This is 2009.
yeah, okay, yeah.
So it's a later cover. And then I went, so Bill, you picked Toxic. Well, I went with the other one, World Circus, which
Wow.
I love. I love the green. I mean, I'm a big fan of the color green. So
Yeah.
this to me is like it really pops. I've always liked this cover quite a bit. So I went with that one instead. And then at number, where am I here? Number, so 8, 9. The next one I went with, now this is one of my favorite bands as well. Suicidal Angels.
Oh,
This is
yeah.
Division of Blood. Oh, these covers are fantastic. I totally love these colors. You know, it's a later work, but I'm not sure if you guys are both into Suicidal Angels, but for a Greek thrash band, these guys are a killer.
Wicked
And he
cover.
did all their covers. He did pretty much all their covers. So that's a great one. And next, I have another band that's sort of not well known, but the band Hades.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
This is a Italian band, Italian thrash. He's did a couple of their covers as well. This one I always like, The Roots of Thrash. It's pretty cool.
I'm looking closely at it because he it kind of looks like the Evil Dead old guy.
Yeah.
Maybe not. I think it's just because it's hard to see.
It's kind of it looks like it's a play on a corporate yeah, I guess
Or is
guess
that a
it
pig?
would be.
Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, like a corporate greed dude.
Oh,
Because the
okay.
girl's next to him. So yeah. So I would assume that would be the kind of the play on it. You're right.
Cool.
Good point. Good call, Billy. I never thought of that. And then next, this is another band that I one album, but I love this cover quite a bit. Pitiful Rain from the UK, kind of crossover thrash.
Oh, yeah.
I love this cover. Visual Violence, one of my favorite covers. Now this cover is what I like about it is it's the whole play on the kind of the video nasties that happened in UK when they banned a lot of horror movies back in the 80s. But I love this cover. I love the character. It's so great. This mutant character. It's fantastic. That's a great cover.
Cool.
And then, so Billy, I took the other gruesome cover. This is Dimensions in Horror.
Yeah, I
Oh,
showed
that's
that
cool.
one last week, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
That
you
was
had
my
one.
what was spinning.
It's funny. It's funny because on our when we were showing our list ahead of time, I had the album that you had, but we switched.
Oh, you did? I thought you had Savage Land, or I had Savage Land.
No, you had Savage Land,
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
But I had the gruesome prayer one, but then I switched to this one
Oh, okay.
because I kind of like it. It's
Yeah,
kinda
it's great. I love it.
Yeah, it's a cool piece. And then of course, here's Death, of course,
Yeah.
Healing, which is we all know this is such a great cover, so iconic, so iconic.
That just might be my favorite cover of all time.
Me too.
Yeah, I could see that. It's a great cover.
Yeah.
That and the Black Album.
Shut up.
Number 2 for me, of course, is Hazardous Mutation.
Oh, I love that album.
Yeah, I love this cover a lot. This is
Yeah.
one cover that I really loved. I love the whole kind of mutants and toxic waste. It's kind of a horror movie trope, which I kind of like. So this is such a great cover.
And Ken, is that the only one he did? Because all their album covers are good.
Yeah, I think.
No,
I think that's the only one, right?
Yeah. The other artist is if I can pronounce his name, Andrei Buzikov. He's a Russian illustrator. He's did a lot of stuff. So
but his stuff is good too. The other,
yeah. That guy's an
really
amazing
good,
artist. Yeah. He's been doing their covers now for quite a bit.
Yeah.
And of course, for me, I got to go with Peace Sells.
Yeah.
To me, it's like an iconic cover. It's probably one of the most iconic thrash covers ever in my mind. I love Vic Rattlehead. I love what everything this album stands for. So yeah, this would be my number 1 choice for me.
Cool.
I agree with you guys. I think it's the colors that make his artwork just so great.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, he knows how to use warm colors and cool colors, and you know, it's a very basic illustration.
Yeah.
technique. Well,
Yeah.
how you use warm colors and cool colors. So yeah, he does it well. He does it really, really well. And
So
he's
guys,
got
sorry.
no, go
I
ahead.
was just gonna say I missed one because I don't have the album.
Which
I
one?
only gave 9, but so I'm gonna show it on my phone. So do you guys know? I mean, so this is I love this band, and it's impossible to find the vinyl, but it's a thrash band from Belgium called After All.
Yep, I know.
No.
And like Jim, I think you'd like it. So like the singer definitely has some Joey Belladonna feel to him.
Yes. Yeah.
But he also can do the really good highs, right?
Oh, okay.
Something that even better than Joey does when he lets it soar, like something like a Jeff Tate when he lets it rip. But yeah, it's amazing music. But they have like I don't know, maybe 4 albums.
Yeah.
Every album cover is like fantastic, and they all have this like. Does that come through?
Yep.
Yep.
This
I know
like
that one.
this like zombie theme. This one's called Dawn of the Enforcer. But yeah,
Yeah.
this stuff is near impossible to find in North America, and I can't even find the damn albums in Europe.
Wow.
So yeah, I don't even know if they're in print anymore.
Oh
But yeah,
wow.
just if you haven't heard these guys, they're really good. But
I've heard them.
check this album out, Jim. Dawn of the Enforcer.
I'm gonna, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay. I can see the cover now. Yes.
Yeah, it's cool, but they all have that kind of feel to them all. They're really
Yeah,
good.
yeah. Waves of Annihilation.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've
Cool.
heard these guys. I agree with the Joey Belladonna comparison.
Yeah.
For sure.
But then so he his main singing is like Joey. But then when he hits the highs, then you get like a Jeff Tate or you
Yeah.
get like a Toxic or like it really goes up there. Like it's unique.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, that was a good list. I'm glad there's some crossover, but you know,
That was good.
we all relatively picked some interesting albums. And it just gives you an idea how long the guy's been in the business and you know, and where he started and where he's going now. But I'm glad, Billy, you were able to find some more current albums.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he's still doing some great. I tried to find some recent ones.
Well, I wanted to. I had the Hyrax, the new one, in my list,
Mhm.
but I didn't include it because I don't have the album yet. So
Yeah, me neither. Like, where the hell? Like, that's another one
Can't
that
get
has
it.
never been reprinted.
No.
Like,
Yeah.
you're just impossible to get.
yeah, yeah. I think it's a great cover. I love that cover.
Yeah.
But I didn't pick it because I was like, well, I don't actually. Well, I did originally, but I was like, I don't have the actual album, so
I know, me too. Yeah,
I wanted to have visual aids for the show to show off the
yeah,
covers.
agree.
What's the point of talking about if you don't have them?
Yep.
Not that I'm knocking you, Jimmy.
No, I couldn't go digging through. I was like,
Yeah, no, I get it. It took me I did this early this morning when I got up. I was up pretty early, so I was like, I gotta go find these albums. And I was because I have things all over the place. So I was like, oh, I gotta find them. So I had to dig for mine too, but I wanted to make sure we had them for the show.
Cool.
I figured Billy would have the vinyl.
My vinyl's all in order, so I can find it, but my whole CD collection's out of order. So
Same with my
it's on
CD.
CD. I don't even attempt to find it. It'll take me forever.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I hear you. Yeah, that's a collector's nightmare, but that's fine. We're all collectors, so cool. All right, dudes, before we announce our big special show next week, does anyone have any final thoughts they want to add to this podcast?
Nope.
No?
No, looking forward to next week's show.
Yeah.
Yes. And on that note, next week we are doing our year-end list. And this is probably the episode that Jimmy's been so chomping at the bit to do because he's got like 50 or 60 albums that he loves, and he's got to pare it down to 15. So what we're doing is our best year-end list, and we're teaming up with Allfather, the other website that metal website that all three of us work for. We are good friends with Kim and Jason, and they're going to come on, and we're going to do a team up of 5 of us together, and we're all going to basically give you our top 15 albums of the year. So that should be a really cool.
Can't wait.
Yeah, me too. And I know you are, Jimmy. I know you're chomping at the bit for this one. I just know it. I knew that this is the show for you, the show that you're dying to get to.
Oh yeah.
And we finally have a female on the
yes.
podcast.
Yes, Kim is finally going to make it here, which is great because she was supposed to be on Painkiller, but unfortunately she was busy and Jason hopped on in her place. But yes, we finally get Kim on the show, which is going to be cool.
Wicked.
So it'll be a great show. And I think we're all just going to, we don't really have one person picked out to be the host. We're just all going to host it since all three of us are talking about, metal, all five of us. So we'll just all gab and we'll have a good time.
Absolutely.
Right on. All right. So we'll cut it off now. I know that Jimmy's got to get his bedtime sleep in there. I think we all do probably. So with all that being said, let's sign off, boys. See you later.
Good night.
Hey.